Welcome back everyone. We've been talking in our last few videos about connections and the importance of connections in our life, especially in changing times, and how we're making those connections now and the challenges around making those connections. Lisa was talking about an experience of a long period of time in her life when she had very few connections, but what connections she had were very valuable and very important to you, and they helped you to get through at that time, Lisa. I'm talking about in the last video how connection is very different for me, how I am very disconnected from the people who mean a lot to me in my life, and how I'm having to re-establish new ways of connecting in order to stay as well as possible. We had also talked about how we generate hope through connections, and how maybe it's important to acknowledge now how maybe there's maybe less hope for some people around because they feel disconnected. So Lisa had also said about some of the things that we can do. And I think when we are talking about the work that we are very strengths focused, we take a strengths focused approach to everything we do. It's very much about looking at and talking about the things that we can do, the things that we know we can do, and how we might change and diversify a wee bit to enable us to stay hopeful, to get through the days that are more challenging. And I'm mindful of a few conversations that I have had with people recently that have made me very aware of how connections are very different. How people who I know who would have been out a lot, interacting a lot, people who run and walk a lot in the park, and people who go to the town actually every single day as a way of, that's how those people are. Feeling part of society and feeling connected, because we can go through a day and go up the town and go for a walk in the park and never speak to anybody but still feel connected because there are no restrictions on our lives. But once there are restrictions in place because of COVID now, those connections, and we did say this in the last video, that we may have taken for granted, actually start to become a bit more uncomfortable for us now. And is there, I'm thinking about, I had a conversation with someone recently who doesn't get out as much, and I'm thinking, so if your walk in the park was never really about talking to other people, or even your run in the park, one of those people is a person who does a lot of 5k runs, if they were never really about connection in the past with other people, what were they about? They were about connection to yourself and feeling connected. And if you're restricted in what you can do now, and you're not getting out to the park to have the walks and to have the run, what does that actually mean for you now, and what are people doing differently in order to renegotiate new ways of being with yourself and with other people? And I know for me, and I've said it before, I think about 2 weeks ago when we were doing the work around getting through the day, I'm having to renegotiate relationships. I'm having to renegotiate how I communicate with people that I'm only talking to through a window, or talking on FaceTime or WhatsApp video messaging, even on Zoom. Even at work, we are communicating differently with people through a meeting, an online meeting space. And that can be challenging too, because it feels like there's a lot of connectedness lost because you're not in the same room with people, you're not making eye contact with people. A lot of the way we communicate is done non-verbally as well. So some of that can be very challenging, and there can be misinterpretation actually around it as well. So you're having to clarify what you're saying to people and how you're communicating with people so that people feel understood. And it takes me back to that whole piece about feeling heard, feeling seen, that your contribution to conversations and to relationships actually matter. And so renegotiating ways that we do things are part of what we have to do now. Just have to go with it, don't have a choice. It's either that or not communicate at all. And connection is too important for me to not be renegotiating relationships and the way in which I connect with people.
And I think it's bringing it back to as well, thinking about around the topics that we've spoken about, the things that nurture hope in us, the things that help get us through the day. We've got somebody who's going to be doing a video around connections, who's speaking about music and how music helps connect. And I think many of us have that experience around music. And sometimes it's going to our internal resources and thinking of those things that have helped us feel connected before. For me, working out with my son my 15-year-old son, just having that physical contact with him is very connecting and very grounding. It's not about the conversation or anything. It's about doing something together that we enjoy.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as that.
Yeah.
And those kind of things help us. You know, sometimes when life is very challenging and everything is that whole idea of feeling not in control,
Yeah.
can challenge us, and we can almost feel paralyzed about doing anything because it
Yeah.
feels so hard.
Can I bring something up in
Yeah.
relation to that? It's just interesting, Lisa, that you say about connecting with your son through that working out and that physical exercise, that physical activity. And it brings something to mind for me. When we're talking about connections, it almost feels that there has to be more of an effort into our verbal communication in order to be able to connect meaningfully. And I bring that up for myself actually, because my relationships at home now are different, and sometimes it feels like you have to make more of an effort to be face to face and to have conversations that sometimes can be challenging, because you're renegotiating what is done in the house, who does it, at what time, if it's done to the standard that
Who's
you want
wiped
it
the
done.
counters and who hasn't?
Absolutely.
Dishes, washing.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that actually, what I have been doing at home is decluttering, clearing out the house, and that does not require face-to-face contact. That requires being in relationship with that other person that I'm living with, being in the house, making a decision about this is what we're going to do. We're going to declutter, we're going to clear out that cupboard or that wardrobe, clear out the shed or whatever it is, which is a massive task. But when you're doing something like that together, it's not about how are you feeling and how are you getting on, and that desire and intensity that sort of takes on, and which is also a part of connection. But there's something about doing things together. If you have somebody at home, something very simple like clearing out and decluttering like we're doing, and actually some of the conversations for me that have come up in that type of connection have been really quite amazing. Some of the things that we've been talking about this week while we've been doing that have generated a sense of connection that is more like a feeling rather than what we're actually connecting on in terms of common themes and common conversations. It's actually about what we're doing together that we're not even talking about, but that it creates a new way of connecting and generates a lot of hope. It generates fun. We've had a really good laugh doing it.
Yeah. And that releases the endorphins. It goes back to the physical.
Yeah,
you know, why doing these things is so important, and why connection is about shared enjoyment, shared laughter, shared meaning, shared purpose, even sharing what's just important to you, because that whole piece on compassion about valuing what's important to us, that we actually do matter, that every voice matters. You know, and I think maybe to finish this video with that whole idea, we really miss our participants, whether it's staff or people using services of the community, being able to interact with them, because the richness of having people around the table bringing their individual experiences, and somebody across the room suddenly connects with something that someone's been brave enough to say here, and you can see that spark of hope lighted in somebody. Don't even know if that's the right language, in somebody across the room. And this is about saying, even if it is really difficult for you at the minute, and maybe for some people it's easier, but if it is really difficult for you, you do matter, because I know that I've needed somebody in my life who has had similar experiences to me, that only they've gone through, that can connect with those things in me. And everybody out there, every individual who goes through, and we're all very different, and we all need very different things. But everybody does matter, because you're able to connect with somebody in a way that I will never be able to, and you will never be able to, because what you bring to the table, the skills, the experiences, your innate, what you bring as a human being to the world is unique to you. And there's only one of each of us. And we all need each of us, as different and frustrating and challenging as collaboration and all that kind of thing can be, to have all voices heard around the table. We all have our place in order for meaningful connection, growth, you know, to kind of go on. So
yes, and in our next video we're going to talk a little more about that, the whole idea of cooperation and collaboration and its value in connecting in relation to personal responsibility and organisational responsibility and how we connect as human beings. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.